When someone you love is going through a tough time, one of the most difficult, tricky, touchy things to know is how we can help them. So in today's video, I am going to share things that helped me, things that I have researched, and also I polled the Mareathoners in our Facebook group and had incredible answers. You were really generous with your suggestions, telling me what was helpful. So I'm going to share all of that today. If you are new here, hi, my name's Mare, and a little bit of a backstory is I became a widow at the age of 33 after losing my husband. I have a beautiful son, Thomas, who has just recently been diagnosed with epilepsy, and that was what really inspired me to film this video. So whether you're someone who's going through a really tough time, if you are, first of all, sending you a lot of love and support and deep breaths. And also, just send this video to your loved ones. Say, here's some helpful suggestions on how you can support me. Or if you know someone who's going through a hard time, take some notes, save this video, share it with your friends. I think we have a lot of really helpful suggestions that we're gonna get into today. The first one that came up time and time again was spend time with me. It is really important if you're going through a tough time to not feel isolated. And the things that came up were let me vent, validate my feelings, don't try to problem solve. You know, if you're someone who's going through a tough time, it can feel kind of like stonewalling when someone is like, oh, well, have you tried this? Or like, ooh, let's do this. Or let's just like, can't you just? As someone who has had her fair share of trauma, from my experience, that just makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I hadn't thought of these things. And sometimes it's nice to say when someone's venting to you, do you want to vent or do you want to problem solve? Like, how can I best support you in this situation? That's a really good place to start asking that question. Another thing, it's okay to feel awkward. It's okay not to know what to say to someone who's going through a tough time, but showing up, being present, and trying means all the world. You know, they always say like people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. When I lost my husband, I remember a friend of mine coming over and like bringing Thomas a stuffy, and I could tell she was so nervous and she was so uncomfortable, but she was there. I think she maybe only stayed for 20 minutes and then I was like, that's all I got. But I remember that. Like, I remember she showed up for me. Even if it's awkward, even if you don't know what to say, that's okay. You don't need to know what to say. You can just say, this sucks. Like, this is horrific. I can't believe we're going through this. Just validate how they are feeling. Remind them that they are not alone. Because grief and trauma and anything that you're going through can feel so isolating and like you're the only one who's ever gone through it, and I promise you, you are not. Another suggestion that goes along with this topic in time together was someone said that they really liked it when they were grieving, that they liked friends who checked in, but then also kept them accountable. Like, have you eaten today? Have you moved your body today? How's your sleep hygiene? Not in like an attacking way, but just like a, hey, I really care about your well-being and I'm just reminding you, have you eaten? Have you taken a shower? You know, like that kind of thing they said was really helpful. And many of you in the Mareathoner group said time in nature. So maybe, you know, you don't want to sit on the couch or your friend has been at home for so long. Say like, hey, do you just want to take like a 10-minute walk? Do you just want to sit on a bench outside and get some fresh air? It's really nice sometimes to just get outside. Okay, this is a big one that came up in my research time and time again, and I can say from personal experience, and was also brought up in the Mareathoner group. Bring up the person who we're grieving. Bring up the person who has been lost. You know, I remember when I lost my dad when I was 19, I had friends, and like we were super young. Like no judgment, no judgment at all. But you know, they said like, I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to upset you. And even at the age of 19, I said like, I'm always thinking about this. There's always just kind of like a low hum of grief. So don't think that you're going to bring it up and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I forgot my dad died. Like, I get that, like you don't want to upset someone. And a really great tip that I heard was, if you're unsure about whether this person wants to talk about the person that they lost, ask them in a text message, because then you're not putting them on the spot and they can reply and say like, yes, I do want to talk about them, or like, you know, I just kind of need to take a break. Or you could bring up their loved one in a text like, oh, your dad would be really proud of you. Or I really wish that your daughter was here to see X, Y, and Z. Or you must really be missing your grandma today. That sort of thing. And then it brings them up, but your friend doesn't even have to respond if they don't want to. If you have one takeaway from this video, let this be it. Do not say to someone who is struggling, let me know if I can help. I know that the intention is good, but when you're going through a hard time, it feels like you're just being given another to do. Now I have to think of something that would be an appropriate task to ask you, and then what if it's too much? Or like, for me, anyway, I can speak from my experience, being in that grief fog, or being in such disbelief and panic when Thomas was having seizures, I could barely even, like I didn't even know what day of the week it was, let alone like, how can I help this person help me? So don't say that, do this. Concrete things, okay? Concrete ways in which you can help people. And I have a big list, because things that really helped me when Jeremy died, or things that you suggested. So, meals. Drop off meals at their house, leave them on the front steps. Do not expect to be asked in. Do not expect to be hosted, nothing. People filled my freezer with meals, but they also brought stuff that like I could consume, because I barely ate. It just wasn't, yep. Smoothies were awesome. You know, like if you know a new mom and you're showing up to like meet the baby, don't show up empty-handed. Show up with a smoothie and say like, do you want this now, or do you want me to put it in the fridge for later when you're holding the babe? Or like gift cards to skip the dishes, Uber Eats, that sort of thing is really helpful. Like food in general is just awesome. Another way that you can support someone with food is, I had some people do this for me, which was awesome, was texting me, hey, I'm at the grocery store, what do you need? Or, hey, I'm going to Costco today, what can I pick up for you? Not, let me know if you need anything, what do you need? Like I had a neighbor, the week Jeremy died, I was sitting outside and she's like, hey, I'm going to Costco, do you need anything? And I remember thinking like, I don't want to be a burden, but this person's offering to help. And I was like, can you pick me up toilet paper? I was having so many people come through the house, and that was like so helpful. I still remember that to this day. Another great thing that someone did for me was, Jeremy died on June 9th, so Thomas still had like 3 weeks of kindergarten, and she made all of his school lunches for me. Like, I could cry. It was so helpful, and I just felt like so supported, and she saw me, because no mom, no parent likes to make school lunches, but in that situation, I don't know how I would have done it without her. That's such a cool thing. So if you say like your child, their friend, you know their parents are going through something, say like, hey, don't send school lunches this week, I'll just send an extra one with Thomas or whomever. Like, those things may not feel like much, but I still remember that 6 years later, and I'm still moved by that. Another thing, if you are there in person and you're close enough to the person, is offer to go to appointments with them. I cannot tell you how much I valued my girlfriends who came with me to the funeral home when planning Jeremy's funeral. He had just died, and then suddenly I had to plan this huge public funeral, and like, everyone wants to give you their input and everyone wants to tell you stuff, but my girlfriends just came and took notes and they asked questions, and it was invaluable. Or maybe you have a friend who's going through cancer treatments. Say like, hey, can I come with you to your appointments? Can I drive you to your appointments? Can I pick you up? That sort of thing. I think like just company, which goes back to our first suggestion, right? Just showing up means so much. Next tip, lower your expectations of your friend. Do not expect them to return emails, phone calls, text messages. Do not expect them to, like, if they forget your birthday, don't take it personally. Grief is like this all-enveloping fog that takes over, and it is unrealistic and super unfair to expect your friend to be the same person they were before the loss happened or before the diagnosis happened. Just really give them some grace. Lower your expectations. And along note of that, lots of people suggested, and this was also in the research that I did, it's really nice to still be emailed. It's still nice to be texted. It's still nice to be invited to things, with the caveat knowing I'm not coming. But still invite me, because it's nice to know that like I'm included, and maybe I will feel up to it, but there's a good chance I won't. But like, thank you for still including me. So still send invites, and don't get offended if they don't come. Don't get offended if they show up and leave because they're having a panic attack. Or they stay and have their panic attack. Like, so many times I have. You could even preface it by saying like, no need to reply, just send me good vibes today. Or no need to reply, I just left an Americano on your doorstep. Like, just lowering your expectations of that friend goes such a long way, or your loved one or whomever. In watching this video, you're already doing this next tip, but it is do your own research. So right now you're researching how you can support your friend, or how, if you're going through a tough time, you can ask your people to show up for you. But like a huge thing that just like was so simple to me, but was so powerful, was I told a girlfriend of mine Thomas's epilepsy diagnosis. And instead of saying to me, what is that? What does that mean? Like, will he have it for life? You know, how often? Medicine? Like, how is this going to change his world forever? She said, I'm going to have to do some research on epilepsy. And I was like, wow, that is so nice. Like, you care enough to do research, and you also don't expect me to provide that information. I mean, you can tell it's so touching. Do your own research. And I mean, don't then bring that research and say like, look what I learned, I'm the expert. Just for your own, like, answer your own questions. Don't expect your loved one to answer those for you. But don't bring a bunch of like information, like, look what I learned, and then stress them out with like Dr. Google. No. And then my last tip, my last suggestion showed up in the research. I can say from experience, and it also showed up in this poll I did on the Mareathoner Facebook group. Please be there for the long haul. So many people show up when someone passes away, when it's like new and fresh, inundated, but the grief doesn't like go away after a month or two. I'm approaching the 6-year anniversary of my husband passing away, and at some moments it feels like it's just happened. I found the 2nd anniversary of Jeremy passing way harder than the first. Reality had sunk in, and also hardly anyone was around still. You know, couple family members, couple friends, but that was it. So my advice to you is make note of the dates, like the day the person passed away, their birthday, anniversary, like whatever those dates would be, and check in with your friend that day. Hey, thinking of you today. I know today sucks. Thinking of you, thinking of whomever passed away, like thinking about Jeremy, thinking about whatever. I can't tell you how far that goes. Just to like, again, you don't feel alone. And to be given the grace that grief doesn't have an expiration date. It doesn't go away. It lessens, it ebbs, it flows, but it's not like, oh, once they've been gone for 3 years, like, oh, you forget the day and like you move on. At least not from my experience and all of the research that I did. Make a note of those dates, be there for the long haul, check in with your people, and just make sure that they know it's okay to still be upset. It's okay to be totally fine for 5 years and then it's hard. It's fine. There's no guideline to grief, there's no timeline, and I hope that these tips and suggestions have been helpful. I hope you took notes. I hope you'll save this video. I hope you'll share it. If there's anything that I missed, please share it down below. The comment section can always be very helpful. I love when there's conversation between people who have watched this video. Share some things that really helped you, either when you were going through a hard time or you were supporting someone. I know I would have found this very helpful when I was a new widow, to be able to just be like, oh, what can people do for me? I hope the takeaway is, even if it feels small, the impact is huge. And it means so much. Here I am 6 years later talking about things that helped me when I became a widow, and I can still think of things that helped me 20 years ago when my dad died, and also a few months ago when Thomas had his epilepsy diagnosis. Please take care of yourselves, take care of one another. Remember, life's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.